What you're about to hear isn't just another message about kindness and unconditional love. It's a profound exploration into the human mind, revealing a truth that Carl Jung, one of history's greatest psychologists, discovered after years of studying the soul. If you've ever felt like your kindness works against you, or that people mistake your nobility for weakness, or maybe that the more you give, the less you seem to receive, then you're about to understand why. Jung recognized a disturbing pattern through his work with patients. He noticed that those who believed they were too good, often the ones who prided themselves on their kindness, were the ones suffering the most. But what does it truly mean to be good in today's world? We've created an idealized version of goodness. The person who's always available, who never says no, who forgives without hesitation, and who consistently puts others ahead of themselves. Jung realized that this perception of goodness was not just flawed, it was dangerous. When we equate kindness with self-sacrifice, when we see love as something that has no boundaries, we are ultimately doing harm to ourselves. Jung uncovered something unsettling. The more we strive to be perfectly good, the more we fuel the growth of our shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we deny or suppress in favor of forced niceness. It's like trying to hold a ball underwater. The harder we push, the more the ball fights to break free. Consider your kindness as a light. Society teaches us that to keep that light shining, we must turn off everything else: our anger, our desires, our limits. But Jung realized how misguided this approach was. True kindness doesn't come from denying who we are. It comes from embracing every part of us. How many times have you heard that voice inside you whispering, "Enough," only to ignore it because you've been taught that a good person doesn't think that way? How often have you suppressed your anger, frustration, or pain, believing that doing so would make you more virtuous? Every time you reject these parts of yourself, you don't become better, you become more broken. This isn't a call to abandon kindness. It's a call to wake up from naive kindness and transform it into something deeper, stronger, and more complete. Because true kindness isn't the absence of darkness. It's the ability to integrate every part of who we are into one harmonious whole. What you're about to learn may challenge everything you thought you knew about goodness. It will challenge your ideas of love, sacrifice, and authenticity. But if you're open to it, if you allow yourself to question what you've always taken for granted, you will discover a liberating truth. True kindness doesn't drain you, it empowers you. It doesn't make you smaller. It makes you whole. This is the profound yet unsettling wisdom Jung left behind. To be truly good, we must first become truly whole. And that journey begins by confronting the very shadows we've worked so hard to deny. When Jung spoke of the shadow, he wasn't referring to some abstract or symbolic concept. He meant a real psychological force that exists within all of us, a part of ourselves we're taught to fear, repress, and reject. It's the place where we hide what we believe to be unacceptable. Our anger, our deepest desires, our need to say no, our yearning to be seen. For those who consider themselves inherently kind, the shadow becomes a terrifying force. Their identity is built around being the light, always helping, never failing, always there for others. The very thought of having a dark side fills them with dread, as if acknowledging it would shatter everything they think they are. But this denial comes with a heavy cost. When we refuse to acknowledge our shadow, it doesn't just disappear, it grows stronger. It becomes uncontrollable. Trying to suppress it is like trying to hold back a river with your bare hands. It will eventually break free. Repressed energy doesn't vanish. It twists and mutates, emerging in ways we can't control. This is something overly kind people experience in subtle yet destructive ways. It can show up as resentment after helping someone who never reciprocates. It manifests as quiet anger when others cross invisible boundaries. It reveals itself as deep sadness when they realize no one truly sees or values their needs. The more we try to be perfectly good, the more vulnerable we become to our own shadow. It's a paradox. Deny your anger, and you become passive-aggressive. Reject your need for recognition, and you become subtly manipulative. Pretend you don't need anything, and you become an emotional vampire. unknowingly draining others. But Jung understood that the shadow is not our enemy. It's an essential part of our inner world, holding not just our negative traits, but also our untapped power, our ability to set healthy boundaries, to stand up for ourselves when necessary. By rejecting the shadow, we don't just lose our darkness, we lose a part of our light. Imagine someone who has spent their entire life being the good one. They were taught that anger is bad, that setting boundaries is selfish, and that their needs should always come last. This person doesn't just suppress their anger, they suppress their personal power. Their ability to say no, their right to take up space, their sense of self, all of it becomes buried beneath a false identity of self-sacrifice. Jung recognized that this is not true kindness. It's fear masquerading as virtue. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being enough. True kindness doesn't come from never being angry or never setting limits. It comes from the courage to integrate all parts of who we are, light and dark, into a coherent whole. The shadow, when acknowledged and embraced, becomes a powerful wellspring of strength. It's like a garden in the dark. If we're willing to enter, we won't just confront our fears, but we'll also discover our deepest sources of power. This is where naive kindness transforms into conscious wisdom. For Jung, true spiritual work wasn't about eliminating the shadow. It was about learning to dance with it. Recognizing that our anger is as sacred as our ability to love, that our boundaries are as important as our generosity, and that our need for recognition is just as valid as our desire to give. This is the first step toward a more authentic and powerful kindness. Realizing that the shadow is not your enemy, but a part of you waiting to be seen, acknowledged, and honored. And when you finally meet it face to face, you might find that what you feared the most is exactly what you needed to feel whole. Blind kindness comes at a steep price. It's paid in emotional exhaustion, delayed dreams, unbalanced relationships, and a half-lived life. It's the fatigue of those who give endlessly without ever being replenished. The silent frustration of those who suppress their needs for the sake of others. The deep loneliness of those surrounded by people who never truly see them. Think of someone who has made self-sacrifice their identity. This person doesn't just give their time or energy, they give pieces of their very essence. Every time they ignore their own needs for others, every time they silence their voice to maintain peace, every time they say yes when their soul screams no, they are paying with fragments of themselves. The modern martyr doesn't wear a crown of thorns, at least not one you can see. Their suffering takes the form of sleepless nights, worrying about others' problems. It shows up in relationships where they give more than they receive. It's the schedule so packed with commitments to others that there's no time left for themselves. This way of life isn't just accepted by society. It's praised without seeing the deep neglect it hides beneath the surface. Jung saw that this pattern of self-sacrifice often has its roots in childhood, in the belief that one must always give, always be good, always put others first. You may have been the one who had to be the good one to keep the peace in your family. Perhaps you were taught that your worth was measured by how much you could do for others. These early lessons become invisible chains, binding us to patterns of self-destructive behavior. For someone who practices what could be called blind kindness, relationships often follow a predictable script. They become everyone's confidant, the shoulder to cry on, the unwavering support. But when they need help themselves, they are met with an unsettling emptiness. People become so accustomed to receiving from them that they never consider offering anything in return. This creates a unique kind of loneliness, being surrounded by people who know your kindness but not your true heart. The exhaustion of constantly giving isn't just physical. It's a deep, soul-level fatigue that drains not only your energy but your joy for life. It feels like a slow, spiritual death, where you lose touch with your own dreams, desires, and needs. You become an empty vessel, existing solely to fulfill others' needs. This imbalance creates a toxic dynamic where the kind person becomes indispensable to others, yet increasingly invisible to themselves. What seems like virtue in the beginning is actually a self-imposed prison. They become a resource to others, but in the process, they lose their own humanity. The cruel irony is that this excessive kindness doesn't just harm the one practicing it, it also harms those it's meant to help. By constantly rescuing others, by always being available, by never letting others face the consequences of their actions, the chronically kind person actually stunts the growth of those they're trying to save. This behavior doesn't just drain you, it breeds resentment. The resentment of someone who has given everything and received nothing in return. The frustration of someone who is there for everyone but finds no one there when they need support. And when that resentment is buried under layers of kindness, it becomes a poison that slowly seeps into every relationship. This is the true cost of blind kindness. We don't just lose our energy, our time, or our peace of mind. We lose our connection to our true essence, to our deepest desires, and to our ability to set healthy boundaries. We become diluted versions of ourselves, existing mostly in service to others' needs. But integrating the shadow isn't a smooth or comfortable process. It demands courage, honesty, and the willingness to face what we've long avoided. It's like turning on a light in a room that's been dark for years. At first, what we see might be unsettling, but only by seeing clearly can we begin to put things in order and transform. The journey starts by acknowledging that our excessive kindness has often been a form of avoidance. We avoid conflict. We avoid rejection. We avoid the possibility of being judged or criticized. Behind every act of excessive kindness lies a fundamental fear, the fear of not being loved for who we truly are. Transformation requires a very particular kind of bravery. We must be willing to disappoint those who have come to expect our unconditional availability. It's like rewriting an invisible contract we've held with the world for years. The silent agreement has always been, "I'll be everything you need, and in return, you'll love me." But now the new contract says, "I'll be authentic, even if that means I won't always please you." Integrating the shadow doesn't mean becoming cruel or indifferent. On the contrary, it means developing a kindness that is more powerful and real. It's the difference between a weak flame that any breeze can blow out and a strong fire that gives warmth and light without being consumed. True integration happens when we realize that our ability to set boundaries is just as sacred as our ability to give. The power that comes from this integration is fundamentally different from cruelty. Cruelty arises from fear, weakness, or the need to dominate. True power, the kind that comes from shadow integration, emerges from self-acceptance, from the ability to stand in our truth without needing to overpower others. The wise kindness that arises from this journey is like a tree with deep roots. It doesn't need to prove its strength by tearing others down. Its power is shown in its steadiness, in offering shelter when it's right to do so, and in maintaining its natural boundaries without apologizing for taking up space in the world. Those who reach this integration discover a beautiful paradox. The more they accept their darkness, the more genuinely kind they become. They no longer give out of compulsion or fear, but from a conscious choice. Their generosity flows from abundance, not from emptiness. Their compassion comes from strength, not weakness. This new way of being requires a continued commitment to authenticity. It means recognizing that sometimes we will feel anger, and that anger can serve as a compass, pointing to where our limits have been crossed. It means accepting that sometimes we will need to say no, and that this no can be just as sacred as any yes we've ever offered. Integration also means acknowledging that not all our shadow parts are negative. Within the shadow we feared lie our most powerful gifts, our discernment, our intuition about others' intentions, our fierce ability to protect what we hold sacred. The wise kindness that comes from integration has discernment. It knows when to give and when to withhold, when to move closer and when to keep distance. It's not a kindness that spills out aimlessly, but one that flows with purpose and awareness. It's a kindness that honors both the giver and the receiver, one that sees healthy boundaries as a form of mutual respect. This transformation allows us to move through the world in an entirely new way. We are no longer the candle that burns itself out to light others' paths. We become the lighthouse, radiating our own light, guiding others without depletion. Our kindness becomes more powerful precisely because we no longer need everyone's approval or love. The true integration of the shadow allows us to be kind, not out of fear of being something else, but because we choose to be, out of wholeness. It's a kindness that includes our strength, our limits, our ability to say no, and our willingness to disappoint when necessary. At its core, it's kindness born not from fear, but from truth. The establishment of healthy boundaries is a practice Jung saw as essential to psychological development. Yet for those who have built their identity around endless kindness, setting limits can feel like a betrayal of their innermost nature. This is where ancient wisdom becomes especially relevant. Boundaries are not walls that divide us from others. They are sacred lines that define where we end and where others begin. The ability to create boundaries starts with a revolutionary act, recognizing our inherent worth. Not worth based on what we give or do for others, but the intrinsic value that exists simply because we are. This recognition isn't selfish. It's a fundamental act of psychological honesty. When we begin to truly value ourselves, a new way of relating to the world unfolds. We no longer need to earn our right to exist through excessive goodness. We begin to see that reciprocity in relationships is not a luxury. It's a psychological necessity. Healthy relationships are those in which giving and receiving flow in balance. This understanding changes the way we interact with others. We begin to realize that when we allow others to repeatedly cross our boundaries, we not only harm ourselves but also prevent them from learning to respect personal limits. Genuine kindness includes the strength to uphold clear boundaries, because these boundaries protect both our ability to give and the dignity of those who receive. People who learn to set healthy boundaries encounter an intriguing paradox. Their relationships, though fewer, become far more meaningful. Some may drift away when we're no longer unconditionally available, but those who stay will be the ones who truly respect and value us as whole beings. Setting boundaries involves developing a new emotional vocabulary. We begin to sense the difference between authentic guilt and manipulated guilt, between true responsibility and the burdens we've wrongly taken on. This process also requires recognizing that our time, energy, and emotional resources are limited and sacred. We can't give from an empty well. Maintaining our boundaries is how we ensure we always have something to offer when it's truly needed and appropriate. True protection of our kindness doesn't come from building walls, but from developing wise discernment about where, when, and with whom we share our gifts. It's like tending a garden. It requires both clear borders and constant care to flourish. When we guard our energy and resources properly, our ability to be genuinely kind grows stronger, not weaker. The alchemy of transformation is profound, beginning when we allow our light and shadow to dance together. It's like watching two streams merge to create something entirely new, neither purely light nor purely dark, but a new kind of power born from conscious integration. This alchemical journey starts when we stop fighting against our dual nature. Jung discovered that true transformation doesn't happen by eliminating our darker parts, but by allowing them to teach us what we need to learn. Our anger shows us where we need to set boundaries. Our resentment points to where we've been giving too much. Our sadness reveals where more care is needed. Authentic strength emerges from this integration like gold, purified through the alchemical fire of self-awareness. It's no longer the brute force of aggression, nor the weakness disguised as endless kindness. It becomes a refined new power, one that knows when to move forward and when to pull back, when to give and when to conserve, when to speak and when to remain silent. People who achieve this integration develop a unique presence. They don't need to prove their goodness or their power. They simply are. Their authenticity becomes their shield, and their truth, their sword. They've learned that real strength lies not in controlling others, but in mastering themselves. The wisdom that comes from this transformation is like a controlled flame. It can warm or burn depending on how it's used. Those who reach this state understand that their power isn't meant to dominate, but to protect what is sacred, including their own essence. They've learned that kindness without discernment is just as dangerous as power without compassion. This new way of being in the world demands constant vigilance, not from fear, but from awakened awareness. It's like tending a balanced garden. Some plants need more sun, others more shade, and the wise gardener knows that both are necessary for a healthy ecosystem. In the same way, we learn to nourish both our light and our shadow, knowing that both are essential to our wholeness. The kindness that comes from this alchemical integration is a conscious choice, not a compulsion born from fear or guilt. It's a kindness that knows its worth, that doesn't need to prove itself constantly, that can say no without guilt and yes without resentment. It's a kindness that has made peace with its own shadow and therefore doesn't fear the darkness in others. This transformation is an ongoing process, not a final destination. It's an eternal dance between light and shadow, power and compassion, giving and receiving. Every day offers new chances to refine this balance, to consciously choose how to use our power to be kind from a place of strength rather than fear. This personal alchemy creates a ripple effect in the world around us. When we allow ourselves to be whole, we give others implicit permission to do the same. When we show that it's possible to be both strong and kind, both powerful and compassionate, we create a new model of what it means to be truly human. The final transformation leads us to a place where we understand that real kindness is not a straitjacket that limits us, but a power that sets us free. It's not a mask we wear to be accepted, but an authentic expression of who we truly are. It's a state of being where our power and compassion flow from the same source, where our light and shadow work together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. The journey we've explored through Jung's wisdom isn't just a set of ideas. It's an invitation to deep transformation. A transformation that begins the moment we accept that our kindness doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful, that our power doesn't have to be feared to be respected, and that our wholeness includes both light and shadow. Jung has shown us that the path to a more authentic and powerful life doesn't lie in denying our dual nature, but in consciously embracing it. When we integrate our shadow, when we allow our power and kindness to coexist, we become more complete, more capable of creating the life we truly desire. Now the invitation is to take the next step. Look within and ask yourself, what parts of you have you been denying in the name of being good? What power have you been repressing out of fear of being less accepted? What boundaries have you been avoiding for fear of disappointing others? This is the moment to remember. Your kindness does not depend on your perfection. Your worth is not defined by how much you give or sacrifice. Your power doesn't lessen your capacity to love, and your boundaries do not make you any less worthy of being loved. The transformation Jung invites us to make is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey. Every day offers new opportunities to choose authenticity over people-pleasing, conscious power over weakness disguised as virtue, and real kindness over automatic self-sacrifice. The world needs people who have integrated both their light and their shadow, who understand that true goodness doesn't come from repression, but from conscious integration. It needs whole human beings who can embody both strength and compassion, who know when to give and when to hold back, who understand that their boundaries are just as sacred as their ability to love. As you close this message, remember, you're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole. And in that wholeness and the integration of every part of you, you'll find not only the strength to create the life you dream of, but also the wisdom to live it with authenticity and true power. The question now isn't whether you're good enough. The real question is, are you ready to be truly powerful? Not the kind of power that dominates, but the kind that transforms. Not the power that fears the shadow, but the one that integrates it and uses it to create something greater than ourselves. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's walk this path of transformation together.